Good morning. I want to thank you guys for coming this morning to participate in my presentation. I appreciate you guys giving me feedback and ideas of things that you wanted to know a little bit more about. So in speaking with you guys, I found out that there was a need for maybe knowing a little bit more about oral reading fluency. I know that this is something, we do it weekly with our Ames Web progress monitoring. And in learning a little bit more also about oral reading fluency, I kind of have a couple of ideas maybe that we could talk about later on at collaboration that might kind of work in to do some different things with oral reading fluency. Because as I have done some Ames Web progress monitoring, I've noticed a few things that you'll notice as you guys have done these with your own students that you're going to be like, oh, this is what they're doing. Maybe they shouldn't be doing that. So I've learned a lot in doing a little bit of research about oral reading fluency. So I want to provide you with some information about why oral reading fluency is important and how it can look in your classroom. And so our presentation isn't going to be very long. It's going to be brief, but I hope that you learn some different things about and things that you can take away. So today we're going to begin by looking at what oral reading fluency is and isn't. And then we're going to look at kind of how oral reading fluency works with the brain and some different pieces of what oral reading fluency is. And then I'm going to give you maybe some strategies of things that you can use inside of in your classroom. So in front of you, you have a few handouts. So first one is a note taking. If you want to take some notes, you can. If you don't, you don't have to, not necessarily. But it's going to kind of be a little outline of what I'm going to talk about. The second thing is 1 minute timing we're going to do here in just a minute. And then to have you guys get a feel of what it might feel like for your students and how they might feel when they're reading. And obviously it's going to be a cold read, so you haven't read it before. And then the last piece in your stack is a article that I used a lot of for my presentation. So I thought that it was a pretty good article. And you guys can take it along with you and read through it if you would like to. Okay, so we're going to begin by doing a 1 minute timed reading. So in front of you, you have a 1 minute timed reading. Okay, and it's called The Wondrous Wet World. And I actually just pulled these off of Teachers Paid Teachers. It was actually a free one. So there's lots of free resources too off of Teachers Paid Teachers. So this one is about a rainforest. All right. So if you guys will, if Sharon and Shelly, if you guys will pair up and be partners, Brandy, I'll come over and I'll be your partner. We're gonna do a 1 minute timing. So when you do your 1 minute timing, you are going to start reading. Okay. And we want to see how far you're going to get in 1 minute. Okay. Where you stop or where your partner stops, I want you just to make a slash mark. And that's all you have to do. You're not finding errors or anything like that. You're just going to make a slash mark.
We're not doing errors, just...
No.
Cool.
Okay. So,
I'm
I'm going to grab my phone real quick.
Fifth grade's coming all back to me right now.
Maybe it has anxiety to read. Then I'm like, what if you beat? What if I'm not doing good?
Okay, so 1 minute, and we'll rock, paper, scissors to decide who starts.
I'm just going to do this one. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to start it. I'm scared to death. I'm just going to do it.
All right, ready?
Okay. Yes.
Go.
A tropical rainforest is like no other place on earth, with its dense canopy of trees and amazing variety of animals and plant life. Howler monkeys, boa constrictors, and giant spiders are a few of the inhabitants of its lush forest. If you were a weather forecaster or a rainforest, your job would be easy. You could be a consistent forecast. You could give a consistent forecast for almost every day of the year. Today's weather will be hot and humid with a 90% chance of rain. Tropical rainforests are located just north and south of the Although
equator.
tropical
The
rainforests cover
imaginary
only
line
about
that appears as a
7% of the
belt
world,
around the
more
globe.
than half the world's
Although
wildlife
tropical
resides there.
rainforests
We
cover
don't know for
only
sure how
about
many different
7%
plants and
of the
animals there
world,
are,
more than
though,
half the
because
world's
the
wildlife
rainforest is so
resides there.
inaccessible. We don't know for
Scientists
sure
are still
how many
discovering new
different
animal
plants
and
and
plant
animals there
species in the
are, though,
rainforest.
because the
In the
rainforest
Amazon
is so
rainforest, for example,
inaccessible.
scientists have counted at least 2,000
Scientists are
species
still
of butterfly.
discovering new animal and
And
plant
on
species
just
in
one
the
jungle tree,
rainforest.
they found
In
200
the
different
Amazon
kinds of
rainforest,
ants.
for example,
Many
scientists have
rainforest
found that
animals
at
live their
least
whole lives in
2,000
trees
species
that
of
can grow as
butterflies.
high as 200 feet.
Stop.
I didn't do very good.
Okay.
That's where I had to turn.
I know that's why
I went over here too, because I started reading quarterly with her, and I'm like, nope, I should go way too fast, I gotta slow down.
Okay. Ready?
Oh, wait a minute, I gotta do feet.
Turn, you can if you need to.
Set.
I mean, I'm just gonna.
Go. The tropical rainforest is like no other place on earth, with its dense canopy of trees and amazing variety of animal and plant life. Howler monkeys, boa constrictors, giant spiders, and giant spiders are but a few of the inhabitants of these lush forests. If there were a weather forecast for a rainforest, your job would be easy. Give consistent forecast for almost every day of the year. Today's weather will not be hot. Today's weather will be hot and humid with a 90% chance of rain. Tropical rainforests are located just north and south of the equator. The imaginary line appears as a belt around the globe. Although tropical rainforests cover only about 7% of the world, there are more than half of the world's wildlife resides there. We don't know for sure how many different plants and animals are there. So because the rainforest is so inaccessible, scientists are still discovering new animal and plant species in the rainforest. God, Shelley. Okay, and I had to leave my glasses
See, when I-
somewhere. I have no flipping clue where.
On your head?
No, these are my
Oh.
these are my blue things.
Sorry, I just
So
lost
my-
on your head.
My arms weren't hardly long enough to hold it away. To hold it. I'm serious. Well, how did that make you feel? I don't like it at all.
Yeah?
Like 5th grade all over again, and I hated it.
I don't
It's like
mind
reading
it.
at
Don't
church.
mind it?
Mm-mm.
Okay. My blood pressure's probably high. I'm not even
Yeah.
joking.
Well, tell me how much you comprehend.
None of it.
There's
Because I'm
giant spiders.
focused on,
What do you remember about it?
I can
Equator.
remember what she read because I was listening, but I don't
And
remember.
we're studying
Yes.
rainforest in my classroom right now, so it all was like a repeat of what we've been studying.
Sure.
Because
But
we're reading
I
a
got
story
it
on
from
the
you, but I
rainforest.
didn't get it from me.
Yeah.
I don't think.
So,
That's the one thing about fluency that I feel like is lacking, because they're trying to meet the number and not the comprehension.
yes. So that is one thing that we're going to talk about today, because being a fluent reader is important, because if you read fluently, you comprehend. If you don't read fluently, you don't remember anything that you do. And I have a very interesting picture of the brain and kids that might not read fluently to kids who do read fluently. And we can see that in our classrooms as well. Okay? So, first off, we're going to talk about what oral reading fluency is. So, teachers view oral reading fluency as, this was some of the research that I had found, that lots of teachers view reading fluency as reading fast. It's how fast you can get through something. That it's only associated with oral reading, and it really shouldn't be, because there is silent reading fluency as well. And that it's separate from your reading curriculum, but it really shouldn't be, because your reading curriculum should also focus on reading aloud as well. So that was what was found in some of the research that I had read. All right, so from the article that I found, according to Rosinski, fluency has 2 essential components, and that is automaticity and prosody, and we're going to talk about what those 2 things actually mean. All right, so what is fluency? So we're going to start with automaticity. So automaticity happens when kids are able to read words quickly. Any ideas what helps a student read words quickly? What do you think are some of the things that they have to have in their toolbox?
No need to sight words.
Sight words.
Repeat exposure.
Yep. Okay. Phonics is another
Phonics.
thing that they have to have in order, because they need to know that letter sound association. So they need to be able to recognize and decode words without any effort. They
should be like with the phonics that comes in and sight words that come in, they should be able to look at those and say, I know that word is friend or whatever the word is. So they have to be able to decode words very easily. They understand alphabetic principles and they understand vocabulary. You'll see a lot of kids when they're reading, they put in a word that means about the same. It might not have even started with that same letter, but they're going to throw in a word because
Ponder like
they're
that's
thinking.
exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Hannah.
And they have to be able to read in chunks. So when we read, our eyes are always going ahead. We're actually not, and you guys know that, we're not actually looking at the word that we're supposed to be looking at. We're looking ahead. Kids who are especially beginning readers are only looking at the letter one at a time. And so hopefully automaticity comes as they grow. And when they make errors, they grasp less of the text. Like we found out when we were reading, we weren't focusing on what the text was meaning. We were focusing on what the words were because we were trying to get as far as we could. So they make lots of errors. They're not going to be able to comprehend. So that's automaticity. And prosody has to do with, any ideas what prosody is? I didn't really know this one either.
I've never heard that word.
Okay. When you read, we all teach our kids that when we read, we want to read with expression. Well, kids that don't have very great oral reading fluency are just trying to chunk through the words. But a lot of understanding the text and comprehending is reading with expression. So prosody is reading smoothly with expression and intonation, which to me always has been one of those learned skills. Like emergent readers don't have that because they don't really know quite yet what that means. Because they're gaining meaning from their text and reading their connected text, and they're reading with expression. You have that on the choice. So we're going to listen for 4 things, sorry. We're going to listen for the pitch of their voice, the tone of their voice, their volume, and their rhythm. So pitch, maybe how loud or soft. We know that when kids start looking at punctuation, when they see that exclamation point, I remember when Aubrey was reading last year, Mrs. Cahoon must have really started talking about punctuation, and she would read a line and she'd see, there's an exclamation point after she had read it, and then she'd have to reread it again because, oh my goodness, I need to read this loud. And she would read it loud.
Or make the word right before the exclamation point loud.
Yes. And then tone. I remember reading a book with the 4th graders, and there was this really witchy lady in there, and when you read her words, you had to read that with some grumpiness in your voice. And then volume, how loud or soft they're going to read, and then, their rhythm goes along with their connected text. So automaticity and prosody are 2 really important things to reading fluency. So with the brain, we see the brain of a less fluent reader, and we see the brain of a more fluent reader. This is how much they're processing the words on the text. And this is how much they're using as comprehension of the text. Compared to someone or a child that knows how to read. They've learned those strategies. They've learned all of those things. It takes much less for them to process the reading part, and they're gaining all the meaning.
That's interesting.
It is. I think that the brain is pretty cool. So how do we help the kids? What are some things that we can do? So one thing that we can do, here comes 2, but one thing that we can do are repeated readings. So reading through your stories, like in your basal, more than one time. That will help
those kids to understand, because the first time they're focusing so much on the words that they're not gaining the meaning. And I think that the next part goes along with that. So assisted reading. Anytime that you can come up with something maybe that as a recorded reading of something. And I know you guys do that very well with your books that you're reading. So assisted reading helps. And there's all kinds of different websites that you can use. Poetry, which is something that I have never been very good at using, but rhyming poetry, because they're hearing that sound coming and it's so fluid that gets them to thinking, oh, okay, this is how text should really sound. It should sound nice and fluid. So that would be something else that could be used. Readers' theaters are really awesome because it gives them a chance to practice what really good reading should sound like. And I know that was one thing that we really worked on a while back with our small groups, and I loved that because readers' theaters are really good things to do as well. So choral reading, like you said when we were doing our 1 minute timing, how you try to read with somebody else, that helps. If you pair a fluent reader with a maybe not very fluent reader, sometimes that can help to get them to become a little bit more fluent. Paired reading, and there are some really good books. When I taught second grade, my teaching partner had some, they're called I Read to You, You Read to Me, and they were specified like for adults, so we sent them out like for a family read night. And there's like a large text for the parents, but then a smaller text for the kids that kind of mirror off of each other. And they were kind of neat to do. So paired readings are good. Just reading practice, continually asking them to keep on going. So as far as your passage, you might, we had a cold read. Read it again in a couple of days. Read it again in a couple of days. And I think that will help the kids to notice that, I do grow after I practice this quite a few times. And then the last one would be modeling. So showing the kids how good reading sounds. And, we all read in our classrooms different novels and things like that, and we are modeling good reading to our kids. So, anybody have any questions?
Was the paired reading, like they would read a page and the parent would, somebody would read a page and you would just, okay.
Yes.
So it's not like, you're not reading, you read, okay.
Yeah, and it could be a para reads something and then the kid would read it. So,
Are they echoing back? Or is it the same page or it's just like you read a paragraph, I read a paragraph,
Yes.
you read it, okay.
yes. And sometimes they're smaller, like the para or the parent might read something that is a little bit more in depth, and then the child's reading something that's similar, but just, down.
I call that sometimes the shared reading.
That's what I call it.
Yes.
I mean, it's the same thing, but it's just another
Yes.
synonym for it.
Yes.
I do
Yes.
too.
I know that, like say, with one of our students, she was reading to meet to beat her number.
Mhm.
And I said, slow down. Try to absorb what you're reading.
Yeah.
Read with expression. Read to understand. Don't read to beat your last number.
But I have
And
also found out that once they read the first time, they're reading a cold read. The second time, it's becoming more fluent. They comprehend more. The third time they read it, every time they read it, they do
get
try
better.
to beat their number, but they are getting better at the fluency, which is also improving their comprehension.
And I just think practicing really is helpful.
And I do it in my small groups with my seminar time, but I do 2 different stories because otherwise it happens what Brandy and I did. So we have 2 different stories
Start at
going on
different
so
time.
that
Yeah.
She's reading about s'mores
'Cause
and I'm reading about a schoolhouse.
Sure.
You know, and then we flop so that, you know,
Yes.
and that helps because then otherwise you try to either catch up with that person or you're like, oh crap, I'm behind. So then you make dumb mistakes
Yeah.
because you're, yeah.
But it's all something that we could definitely weave in.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes,
I mean,
But they do like to see like how like their improvement. Like, you know, the first time I read it, it was 70%. The second time I read it, I was at 80%, and by the end, I was at this. That's amazing for them to see, and it really does boost their confidence.
but just those keeping on reading and doing some of those other pieces. So I just want to thank you guys for coming today. I appreciate you
welcome.
joining me and
Maybe a little bit.
No, I think you
Thank
should
you.
present
I
this
think you should too.
during a collaboration.
Collaboration.
I really do.
You should.
So.
We'll know all the
Julie,
answers.
did yours?
You will know all the answers.